Okay. Sweet. All right, first things first. You got Takis, Aiden?
No.
You got Cholula?
You got something spicy?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I can go find a hot one. I'll be right back. Give me 2 seconds.
Spilled.
Bruh.
Baby. That's nice. Okay.
That's funny. Gotta get as much as possible.
Ooh, baby. You ready?
No one's gonna know what the fuck's going on.
Here.
I got sriracha.
Yeah, even?
Okay.
Got sriracha. Alright, you're just gonna
Alright.
take a swig of that one.
Take a swig. And we're
Okay.
gonna take a fat hit. All right, welcome to Guy Excellent. If you can't see us, but Max and I have probably just a palm full of Taki dust remnants from the bottom of the bag in our hands. This is pretty much this is like the artichoke's heart of Takis. The most sought after.
Yeah, this is the equivalent of like a single drop of like a single drop of
Battery
cyanide.
acid.
Battery acid.
All right,
Yeah.
cheers.
And Aiden's got
Aiden's got sriracha. He's gonna take a fat swig. All
Cheers.
right, cheers. Cheers to you.
cheers.
Okay.
Damn.
Baby. That was powerful. Okay.
Welcome to Guy Excellent. ladies and
Welcome to
gentlemen.
Guy Excellent. Today, we're going to be talking about Spider-Man Miles Morales.
Yeah.
For the record, we all three played it on PlayStation 4, not on PlayStation 5. So, I don't know if that affects what we thought of the game, but
Yes.
for the record, that is true. I guess, Aiden, do you want to start or do you want to go last? Just talking about the game. Okay,
Great.
I'll go first.
Let's go non-spoilers first.
Yeah, I'm just going to talk about my impressions of the game. No spoilers. I'm still, my mouth hurts.
Yeah, this was a terrible
But,
idea.
okay. I got the game because Aiden pretty much convinced me to. I wasn't going to get it. I was just going to wait until somebody else got it and then I could borrow it from them. But I decided, you know what? I want to get it because I remembered how much fun I had with the original Spider-Man PS4. And I was like, if it's anything like that, which I know it is, it's pretty much it's like a half of the 0.5 of that game. So I was like, you know what, I'll get it. So I got it. And the game itself brought me equivalent joy that PS4 did, but just in a smaller package. Like playing it, I felt that same like just euphoria of swinging around the city, and Miles is such a cool character and is such a different character than Peter, and it really feels like you're playing a different Spider-Man, which is the biggest part. And so really enjoyed it for what it was, but it was short. It does feel like kind of a 0.5 or almost like a DLC, but for what you get, if you really like Spider-Man or if you really like that feeling and the combat and what Spider-Man PS4 brought to the table, if you enjoyed that, I think you'll really enjoy this game. Maybe not worth $50, but I know it's gonna be something that if I'm gonna play a Spider-Man game like Spider-Man PS4 or Miles Morales, I honestly will probably play Miles Morales because I feel like Miles is such more of a fun character and has a lot more abilities and things you're able to do that change the combat that I personally like a lot more than Spider-Man PS4. But ultimately, a great game in a small package. But I think if you go into it knowing that, you'll enjoy it a lot. That's my thoughts.
Great. I agree with Truman. I have basically all the same thoughts he does. If you liked Spider-Man PS4, you'll love this. I think it takes the exact same game-winning. Yes, please. The exact same game-winning, just gameplay, and it transfers over here with just a few more features. Right? It really it builds upon the original. But yeah, I think that I think that the one critique everyone's leveling against it is that it's just too short. It's just too short, and that's, I think, testament to just how really good it is. But that and they have been, Insomniac has been saying from the beginning, like, this is gonna be shorter, right? So prepare for that, right? But I don't think I ever necessarily really registered like, oh, they mean that this is gonna be a much shorter game. Because it still advertises a new AAA title sequel to the game we all love.
Yeah.
But anyways, I think that its shortness is not just that I wanted more of it. It's that I don't feel that it gave itself enough time to let certain elements of the story work their way out and to sit well. And we'll get more. I'll get more into that in spoilers, but yeah, I still love the game, and I think it's 100% worth it if you have not played it yet. It's fantastic. I think that a lot of people who are critiquing it are being a little unfairly harsh because they're seeing it through the eyes of comparing it to the original. And while I think it's a fair thing to do to compare it to the original, I think that it's easy to kind of write off just how winning it truly is. Just because it's the same as the original, but a new, shorter story, doesn't mean that its core gameplay is not fantastic and amazing and all of that. So yeah, absolutely play it. Play it. Them talkies. All right, Aiden, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I personally love the game. I bought it. So what I did was I pre-ordered it, and then it didn't come in on time, so I actually returned my physical copy just so I could buy it in on digital form so I could play it right away because I love Spider-Man so much specifically, and I just didn't want to get spoiled. And it is like it's literally like being in a movie. That's one thing these games are so great about. You just feel like you're in a movie and you're playing in a movie. And like if you just watch the cutscenes without any of the gameplay, it won't be the same experience. But you definitely do get like a lot of entertainment out of that, which I think is impressive. Yeah, it definitely it is this thing of like, if you like Spider-Man PS4, the first one, then you'll love this one too. I think it's they're similar, but I think it does expand on some of the stuff they set up there, and story wise, I think it was really great story wise, and I think for Miles as a character, they did a lot of unique stuff with him that I really really liked, especially because I think the biggest thing that the biggest flaw you can have when writing a Miles Morales story is making it like a Peter Parker story and making it too similar to Peter Parker, and they should feel like very unique and different characters in like this idea of they take up the mantle of Spider-Man and they do something completely different with it. And this game really excelled with that. I think as far as like gameplay and playing it, I had a blast playing it. It does feel like you're playing a completely different character, where Peter feels definitely more like I think the way I described it was he feels like a long distance runner, like he has a lot of like stamina, and over time he takes stuff out, where Miles feels like a sprinter, where it's like big big powerful stuff really quick, and then and definitely Miles has like a more youthful feel to how he plays, and like less thought out, but more kind of like playful with how he does it, and yeah, and I loved it.
Great. So the spoiler list is over now. So if you haven't played the game, or if you don't want to know spoilers, then leave. But if you don't care,
Come along. We're here for you.
Let's talk. So I guess I think the first thing to start with is what Max brought up with kind of the reason the store or the game is getting so much hate. I wouldn't say like hate.
Yeah,
I would just say like the main gripe everyone has is that the story is not only too short, but the package that it comes in is just too small to fit what I can see what they wanted to do with it. You know? And I think what you were keen to is like you meet the Tinker, and then like a mission later you find out
Yes. You get literally one single flashback with her, and then you find out that it's Finn. Yeah, that it's Finn.
It's like that's your kind of moment. And I remember playing it and being like, I literally was thinking about like, oh, who could it be? Because I don't know any of the lore or anything, so it could have been like completely obvious to somebody who knows Miles Morales.
Here I'll say something about so I knew right away when she came in, because her name the Tinker in the comics is like this old guy who people think is an alien, but then he's not an alien. That's a long story, but his name in the comics is Phineas Mason. And then her name is Finn Mason.
Yeah.
Which was like,
sense.
oh, damn.
Yeah. And so I didn't know that, but I was literally like, when she reveals her face, I think it's on the bridge, I was thinking about like, oh, who could it be? Like, I'm excited. I was like, and I was thinking, my first thought was like, oh, could it be the mom? Like, whoa, how crazy would that be? And then immediately after I thought that, it was like, oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And there she is. I was like, okay, that makes sense. But it did, honestly, while I was playing it, I kind of expected that, so I wasn't like, oh my god, it's going so fast, like what's going on, like so I was like, all right, okay. It was just like it was ready to go. And I kind of think it works in the way that Miles is like, his world just like gets turned upside down in like a minute. Like all of a sudden, like everything goes down. It's like, whoa, all right, here we go, you know. And I feel like that rushing can be kind of written off as something like that, but honestly, it's just they had a story that they wanted to tell, and they only had the resources to make it so long, and so they did the best that they could. And honestly, they did a great job.
They did do a great job. I would say to that point, I think that like every beat of the story, every moment that happens is fantastic. Every single. It's just that I think that the optimal way to have received this story would be to just get a little more of each thing, right? Because it felt like I had never really gained the sentimental attachment to Finn that I wished that I had, right? And what was there was good, right? But it felt like it was just a smidgen too short for me to go, that was amazing, that was fantastic. But I think that it could have been there if we just got like a mission or two extra, and we got more background with each of these characters. And I'd say that even applies to his uncle, to the Prowler. What's his name?
Uncle Aaron.
Uncle Aaron. Yeah, I think that it's kind of a very similar thing in that like Uncle Aaron figures out that Miles is Spider-Man
the first time
so quick. And that was another thing that I was like, man, because I know who he is, and I know he's eventually going to get revealed as the Prowler, right? So I was wondering, okay, when do we find out he's the Prowler? When does he find out that he's Miles or whatever? Does he, right? And then he immediately figures that out, right? And so again, it was one of those things where it's like if I had gotten just a couple more cutscenes of background and a couple more missions with him and with Finn and with all of that, I think I would have grown more sentimentally attached to the story. And so when it goes later on to the big plot beats of when you fight him, it's a great boss fight. I think that's one thing we didn't mention. Boss fights in this game are fantastic. They're great.
I think we could talk about combat. It's just like a separate thing.
Let's
talk about that.
Yeah, but for now, the I think that it's it's sorry, I lost my train of thought. I think we just needed more time to sit in all the beats that it presented to us. Because, for instance, like with all the collectibles that you pick up, all of the time capsules, each one, it felt a little bit too gimmicky. And I think that if I had more sentimental attachment to the characters, then those would feel better. Because what those I think should feel like is an addition to the story, where it kind of felt like I was being told so much that they were best friends, and I wasn't being shown it, right? And that's the same case with his uncle, I think, with those, like, audio files. Yeah. I'm being told his backstory over and over and over again, but I'm not being shown it, and I would have liked to see it more, or at least feel it through actual cutscenes where things are happening with our characters.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. I agree with that, especially with Fen. I felt like I definitely wanted their relationship to kind of just bake in the oven a little bit longer.
Yeah, for sure.
But that being said, well, I'll come back to that actually. I'll just say I wish there was more. Even I was thinking like what would have been really cool is, you know, in Spider-Man PS4, the first game when Miles is like doing the hacking thing, I kind of maybe it was like Finn who helped him develop the app, and like that was a moment in the game, and like so you got to her earlier. Obviously, that's a lot more planning ahead and stuff, but that would have been cool, I think. As I will say for Uncle Aaron, and this might be because I've read the Miles comics and I know like their relationship, but I felt that significantly less for Uncle Aaron. And again, that might very well come from my background with those characters, and especially because in the Ultimate comics and a bunch of those earlier issues, and really throughout, a big thing is like this factor of Miles' relationship with Uncle Aaron, and like they go really deep with that. So I already had that that kind of emotional connection and that idea of how their characters developed. So who knows? But I did feel, for me at least, I found his arc really satisfying for me. I really liked what they did with Uncle Aaron, and I really I don't know, I just really liked it. But what was I going to say? Okay, so I will say about Fen is one thing. Normally the thing that would get me about her character is like, okay, we already had spoiler alert, but at the end she dies. She like sacrifices herself.
Rip.
And I'm worried. Most situations, I don't think I would have felt any like emotional connection to that moment because their relationship didn't feel completely completely fleshed out. But when she died, like that really got to me. Even though I didn't have like this huge emotional thing at that point, I still, in that moment, it felt like I knew enough of the character and I had an idea of the background with her and Miles that it still was emotionally impactful for me. Yeah. And then expanding on that, with Uncle Aaron, I really liked, like I said, I really liked what they did with his character, and I really liked like that he's never a bad guy. He just constantly kind of is making the choices that he thinks is right for not everyone, but for himself and for his family. And like and especially for the thing of his family, where it's like he's not the solely selfish character who's, I'm just gonna like look out for myself. He wants Miles to be safe. He wants Miles' mom to be safe. That's one moment I really liked, was when you're walking through the campaign area at the beginning, kind of right before the bridge explodes. You know, when you're walking with Genki
through the Harlem market.
Through Harlem. Yeah, and there's you can stop by different people, and you can stop by like Haley and
those moments are all great. Yeah.
And but there's like this moment where you can stop by Aaron Davis and talk to him, and he's all like, oh, don't tell your mom I'm here, but I just want to make sure you're safe. And I really liked that. I really liked what they did with his character. I really like Prowler in the Ultimate comics. I think he's a character that can be utilized really uniquely and is great for storytelling. And this idea of like villains and supervillains are not like black and white, and they do it in a much more gray area, in a much more grounded area with his character, which I like. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we talked about story. Now we can talk about gameplay, I guess. So just I'm probably just gonna keep comparing things to the original game because that's kind of like our reference of, that's like the top title of like best Spider-Man game of all time. Yeah. And so I think personally I really liked Spider-Man PS4, the original, because it got to a point where I would get into a fight, like at the end of the game when I was just going around like doing crimes and doing random hideouts and stuff, where I would show up and I would literally use every single gadget I had. I would just go through the wheel, just and it was so much fun. Like that was for me, that's what I love to do. And in this game, that kind of like switched out because he only has 4 gadgets, right? Well, technically 3. He has his webs and then three others,
Right.
and that kind of switched out for the Venom abilities, and like that was the thing that I like focused on.
Yeah.
The idea is like I did it awesome. I clipped it, and so I could have it forever. It was literally just like me. I was on the side of a building, and I saw like some guy getting mugged, and I literally jumped off and then just RKO with the Venom ability where you smash down
Yeah.
from like 3 stories high and just smash them and like one shot all of them. It was amazing. And
Yeah.
like that's something that like I felt was so different. It felt so satisfying. And,
Yeah.
that was really cool. Like in the combat. Also the in that vein, like the stealth, I think the camouflage like adds a whole other
It does.
level. Like the idea that I could straight up just camouflage and just kill a dude and then zip out, like
Kill.
kill.
Yeah.
Straight up. It's so funny. It's so funny. I love that they try to like
Yeah.
to like. I'm like,
I straight up,
dude,
I'll
that
kick a dude
guy is
off of a
dead.
building, right, and then just watch off the side, and then he just,
Yeah,
I'm
you're
like, wait a minute,
He's dead. Like that.
fucking smash a fucking cinder block over a guy's skull, and he's just knocked out.
Yeah. But it's I loved it. I wouldn't say I loved it more than Spider-Man PS4, but definitely different enough for me to find it enjoyable and not just like a copycat of the original.
Yeah, and to that specific vein of comparing it to the original, I think that that this game, I think, had the potential to absolutely demolish what the first game set up and set up something so much better. It's just that it's shorter and it's smaller scale. But yeah, I think that I agree about the Venom abilities, and it's been a while since I played Spider-Man PS4, so it's very hard to remember what I had in that one, because I played it on release and then I didn't really play it ever since. But which is bullshit because it's so infinitely replayable.
Yeah.
And I just gave it to a friend. So, but what I was saying is the Venom abilities definitely what you were talking about earlier, Aiden. It feels more punchy and more kind of in the moment, fast sprinter, kind of fantastic. And yeah, I focused nearly everything that I could towards the Venom abilities.
Yeah.
There were like different visor mods or whatever that you could have so that you could just gain more Venom, and that was like the number one thing I used. And and yeah, what I would often do is I would do that same thing as what I would do is I would perch above them. I would go invisible, then I'd drop down and I'd put a gravity mine to suck them all in, and then I'd slam them, right?
Yeah.
And then I'd just go back and forth, fucking them all up, right? And I'd do that for every possible encounter that I could start, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, what I was telling Aiden that I think that that the stealth it's a step up, but there's still so many easy ways that they could make it so much better, right? I think that yeah, adding the ability to go invisible so you don't have to be on ceilings or on ledges or whatever, you can be down and go behind them or go in front of them or around them and whatnot is cool. And then the mines are also super cool, right?
Yeah.
But I'm gonna compare it to some of the, maybe not the best stealth games, but I think the stealth games that do things the way that I really love and are really smart. Watch Dogs, and a little bit Assassin's Creed, just Bethesda in general. I think that particularly Watch Dogs 2, I think
Ubisoft.
Oh yeah, Ubisoft, not Bethesda. Yeah. But
Skyrim stealth, unbeatable,
unbeatable.
amazing.
But anyways, they opt for just more mechanics, right? Yeah. Because I think that it's hard to introduce game-breaking mechanics in stealth, because all you have to do is turn up the possibility of getting discovered, right? No matter what it is, if something is super good, just make it easier to get discovered, right? Whereas it's harder when you give like a powerful punch in a game it's hard to discuss, like, okay, how are we going to counter that? How are we going to balance that? And so it's like, I think that, especially with Spider-Man, it's so satisfying to just hop around and then zip another dude up and distract a guy and then hop to another place. But I think that just give us more gadgets, right? And I think that that's an opportunity that I kind of thought they were going to take with the gadgets early on before I started unlocking all of them and realizing there was only three really, is that I thought it was going to be much more stealth based, right? And that you were gonna unlock those things. And so really, I think that I loved it, but it did, especially like for gang hideouts and stuff, it got very repetitive. Very repetitive, where I would just hop to a place, wait until it said safe, then zip a guy up. Hop to a place, wait until it said safe. And it was also remarkably difficult to break that trend because I would usually get absolutely fucking demolished if I got discovered too early. Right? It would fuck me up so badly. And so like, and the combat is great and fun, and it's I played it on the second to hardest difficulty. And I think that it was very well balanced. There were certain areas that took me like 4 or 5 tries, and that feels good to me. If it takes me a while to try, then I like that, and certain areas felt appropriately easy, right? It was a good balance and very well paced for how short it is. And like I was saying earlier, the boss fights in this one, I think, again, I can't really remember the first one, but I really like the boss fights in this one, because what I noticed with the boss fights is it didn't ever do quick time events. And if it did anything that was quick time-esque, it was still gameplay that you had learned. You always had to throw something and then go beat someone up. You always had to do a dodge and then go beat someone up. You were always using the take the weapon tactics and the things that you had learned instead of just hitting square when it hits the screen. Other than, obviously, there are times where you mash square. But like, for instance, the final fight with Finn, fantastic. I loved it. I loved all the mechanics in it. I loved the new camera angles that you got when you dove out the window when you dove over when you dodged out of the way of her fucking big blades. Yeah, the saws. It was so satisfying because it didn't feel like a boss fight in that I learned how to do it and then I keep doing that. It felt like I was fighting any other enemy in the game, and then I would use a Venom ability, and then I'd try a different thing, and then I'd start using the fucking the hollow guys, and then it felt very good. And I think that applies also to Rhino when you fight him, and also to how much of the side content have you done? Have you finished everything? Okay. So you fought the holographic vultures? Nope. Well,
that's unlocked when you do all the Peter missions.
Yes. Yeah. Well, sorry, spoilers. It's not that amazing, anyways. It was immensely easier than I anticipated it would be. But there's a moment where you unlock a side mission.
It's literally the same boss fight as Spider-Man PS4.
Yeah, only there's 2 of them. It's epic. And it was cool. It was fun. But what's ironic about it being the same as the original game is playing it, I felt like, oh, this feels insanely different to playing any of the bosses in this game, because this is not the combat that I'm used to, right? This is a completely different gig. And honestly, it was a much lesser gig, right? Just because it didn't match up. But I loved all the Venom abilities. The stealth was much better and much more fun. And yeah, it's again, it applies the exact same game-winning formula that the first game had, but just tweaks it up a little bit and gives us something new and gives us something that feels uniquely and narratively more like Miles Morales.
Yeah, that's the big thing I would say is that it's crazy that you can have a character, you can have like 2 Spider-Men who they both use web, they both jump around and use agility, they both have gadgets to an extent, but you feel like you're playing a completely different character, and you have such different tactics going about when you're playing it. Like my big thing I would do is, like, once you unlock like the kamikaze, that when you have all 3, and you can blast. My go-to, especially with like the crime stuff, is I would use the gravity well and like pull in at any of them, and then I would just do that, and there'd be times I would do that and I was just done at that point.
Anytime you fight just like the goons on the street, you just instantly kill all of them. You just instantly win. It's like, bro, I feel like I'm cheating.
And it's great that like Miles has such unique and like it has really, really cool power sets, and it's nice how far they utilize that. And I I liked the way that it's like how you build up your venom and how you can like, there are moments where even when you're in like the midst of combat, you can literally just go invisible, hop onto a perch, and they just forget about you, and like and kind of go back into then the stealth portions.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I really liked one thing I liked is that you can kind of tell they assumed you've played the first game, and there is some stuff that's just like that you're just supposed to kind of know, and it's like there's some abilities that they're like, okay, we assume you know this, and there's some stuff I don't remember being taught, but I know from the last game I knew how to do it, so I would just do that stuff, which I like.
Like throwing with L1 and R1, I don't think it ever taught you to do that. Yeah. I think you just did it. Yeah.
Yeah, which is nice because then it's like it does give you more opportunities to learn about the venom abilities and the stealth and the stuff that's more new, and I really like that. And something not about combat, but about the swinging specifically. I think somehow I thought the swinging in the first game was perfect, but somehow in this game they did it even better for me because they added that element of, and the big thing for me was that you had so many air tricks, and it was so much like you could play around with that so
it's like playing Tony Hawk. It was straight up. It was like playing Tony Hawk, where you just mash shit, and then and I love that you could fail. I love that you could fuck up and just boom.
I love that so much, and I love like there's again like some tricks they just don't teach you, or like that aren't even in this the skill the moves list. It's that aren't even in there. They're just like my favorite thing to do is when you dive backwards and then you hold on, and you can either do like and then I love that it's like I didn't even realize it for so long, but if you switch the direction, then he'll either do it sideways or he'll like pull out his phone. No idea about that.
I never saw him do it sideways.
I don't think so either.
Yeah, and so I love like there were things that they just didn't teach you and you just learned. And I think that was just so fun, especially because one, if not the best part of the game, is just swinging around and just like getting lost in the idea of like this is how Peter Parker, how Miles Morales, how any person who's Spider-Man feels, is just swinging around and going and doing like mundane crimes and like going and catching pigeons. I was talking to Truman about that, where like that for me is always one of the most appealing parts of Spider-Man as a superhero. Everything becomes fun when you're Spider-Man. Doing like making eggs in the morning is fun. You web up your eggs. Going grocery shopping is fun. It's like
I don't know why you'd web up your eggs. I don't know what context you would web your eggs in.
That one came to mind, but it worked.
But
but everything, like there's so much you can do, and I love like I said, like going and catching pigeons and just doing dumb stuff is so fun in the context of Spider-Man, and I love that so much.
Yeah, and
it was quality.
Yeah, speaking to the swinging real quick, the fact that like you can fail, and the fact that like all of his animations while swinging are a lot more clumsy, right? He's always kind of flailing his arms around and he's flipping every which way.
Yeah.
And when you swing around and you kind of chain together little moves where you spin backwards and then you do whatever. It was always fun to look at the little XP thing at the side and see if I got a new name, like I got the Webster or I got the whatever right. I'm like, I haven't gotten that yet. That's pretty epic. But that was cool, and I think that speaks to like it just works thematically so much. Literally just to have him be able to fail while swinging, right? That just I think that's kind of the virtue of Miles' character in this game partially is. Obviously, Peter Parker was an amazing character in the last game. But this one, I love Miles because you can engage with him in the way that this is his origin story, really. He's never been Spider-Man before, and now he's being Spider-Man, and he's kind of fucking ass at it. And it's wonderful. It's so fun.
One thing, I had two things before we finish I wanted to talk about. I'll just tell them, and then we can go into it. But first was I wanted to talk about like Insomniac as how they make Spider-Man games, because I kind of wanted to shout that out. Just I had some stuff I wanted to mention that I appreciated, and then two was just I wanted to talk about Miles as a character really fast. But the first thing I'll just say, for Insomniac games, I really, really, really appreciate all they do for fan service, and not even just that, but like all they do for like the character of Spider-Man, the character of Peter, and the character of Miles, and like in the universe of Spider-Man, I can tell how much heart they have for that character, for the character of Spider-Man and the idea of just Spider-Man. I really, really appreciate that. I really appreciate like I watched this video about like comparing how Insomniac handles the Spider-Man games to how like when Activision had it, like and how like there was a point I think it was maybe like Spider-Man 3, the game, where with Activision it was PS3 had just came out and they kind of said like, oh, okay, we're gonna release Spider-Man 3 on PS2 and PS3, and PS2 like they hardly put any effort into it, and then in PS3 they put a lot more. It wasn't a good game still, but I think I really appreciate that. It would have been so easy for Insomniac to say, okay, this is a PS5 exclusive, and you would have had a lot more people go out and just buy a PS5 just to play this game, and just to because
they still would have made their money for sure. They still would have made their money, but yeah,
right. And like people, there's people like me who don't play a lot of video games, but will go out and buy a Spider-Man game because they love Spider-Man so much. But and I really appreciate that they were like, well, not everyone right now can afford a PS5. Not everyone like can get a next gen console so quickly, and their willingness to like to release it on the PS4 as well that means a lot for me. Of like this idea that they want people to play this game and they want people to experience their characters. I really, really appreciate that. Yeah, and I really appreciate how they handle Peter and how they handle Miles, and I feel like as characters that I think about and I care about so much, and I've spent so much time like with, whether it be in comic books or in movies. It really means a lot to me when I see like a studio who cares about it like equally, and I feel like they have that same appreciation for the character.
Yeah, but speaking to it also being on PS4 and PS5. Kind of fucking buggy. Sometimes it was really bad. It was not often super bad, and obviously that is just the virtue of making a next-gen game and giving us the option to have it on this console. But one thing I didn't think about until I saw it in a video is that in PS4, whenever you were inside anywhere, it would load screen you in and load screen you out. Whereas in this one, you just crawled through some vents and then you immediately came out into the world. And in some cases, you literally just zipped straight out, right? It was great. But also, yeah, there were a few times, particularly with, for whatever reason, when you went to gang hideouts, like when you go to like the Roxxon or you go to the underground on like the high up buildings. Every time I would die, it would freeze. It would immediately freeze, and then I'd have to turn the game off and then load back into it, right? It was so annoying. And of course, sometimes there were little visual bugs, and sometimes while I was swinging, it would just freeze for a second, and then like buildings would load in that I didn't realize weren't there, and then they would. And part of that is probably that I haven't treated my PS4 with the utmost integrity as I should have. But yeah, I think that there were a couple of points in the game where I stopped and I went, I'm kind of jealous of the people with the PS5 right now, because I'm sure it's going to look better and I'm sure it's going to feel better and all of that stuff. But yeah, you're right. It is absolutely wonderful that it is also on the PS4.
The worst bug, I didn't get that many bugs, to be honest. But the one that stood out for me was, it's when you go and get the guy's cat from the bodega and you return it to him. For some reason, it loaded in two versions of him. One who was like cleaning out the counter, and one who was like getting the cat. And I was
That's really funny.
I was so confused, but I literally was like, did I miss something where the bodega was like ran by twins who dressed like the exact same? I was
right. Yeah, funny. Truman got a good bug.
Oh yeah, I sent it to you. It's when you that flashback. It's so funny because it happens. Like I definitely think it's like a model thing where it's like it just reverts.
They just didn't really program it in.
Yeah, and really. So when Miles, when he's like a kid and he's walking through the museum, when he's walking up like any set of stairs or like a ramp, his arms, he like turns into C-3PO. He's just walking with his arms out on the stairs, and it's like I had that. I had the one that Max had also, where when you do those transitions of him like going from out of his suit to into his suit or vice versa, he'll show up and he'll just be like his head and his neck and his shoulders.
Really?
And he'll be just like,
So funny.
and that's it. He's just transparent from that down. And
Yeah.
he's just standing there. And it's crazy. But
Yeah,
I
that was
only have
funny.
it, I had it crash once when I was just
Oh,
fighting
I had it
dudes.
crash once too. I forgot about that.
I just had
yeah.
it crash once and it just said, oh, error.
Yep.
I was like,
Game stopping now.
all right. And so, but that was only once. And I'm like,
Yeah.
all right. That's
Yeah, I should clarify that, like, the bugs, when I was doing that one gang hideout, kind of game breaking,
Yeah.
but for the most part, at no point was it like
altering to your
Ubisoft,
perception.
where it can really like mean, oh, this game is just buggy.
Yeah,
Right.
it's just
Yeah.
a bad game.
But yeah, I think that it was good. I had another thing. Can't remember.
Yeah. Well, you better think of it quick.
Yeah.
We're gonna wrap it up.
Aiden, do you got any more thoughts?
I wanted to say one last thing is, so going into the game, one thing that I wasn't worried about, but I was just like, I was thinking about when I went in was Miles, like playing as Peter. Like, Peter has been my Spider-Man for as long as I can remember, and he still is, and he's still like, he's the character, one of the characters that I relate to the most, and I feel like it's like, in comparison to Miles, I have a lot more in common with Peter, and Peter's more of like just a dorky guy and white.
He saw me leaning in. He knew.
But I just feel like I personally have a little more in common with Peter because he's less confident and they're just things. So when going in, I was worried. I was like, is this character, is Miles, as much as I loved him in the comics and as much as I loved him in Into the Spider-Verse, I was like playing him and like basically putting him in a situation where like you essentially are Miles Morales. I was worried that he wasn't going to resonate with me as much as I was hoping for. But I would say all of my doubts like went to rest, and as I was playing, I connected so much to Miles and I cared so much for him. And like my favorite moment in the entire game is there's that boss fight between him and Ben, and she's like beating the shit out of him, and she says something along the lines of like, why do you keep getting up? You know I'm gonna like bring you down and stuff like that, something like that. And he goes, because I'm Spider-Man. And like that moment, I just started like crying, like.
Yeah, and that's most definitely just Aiden being an extreme fanboy.
Right.
Honestly, personally, when he said that, I thought it was kind of dorky.
Yeah.
Like, because I thought it could have been like so much, like the delivery could have been so much better. He was just, because I'm Spider-Man, and then he gets up and beats her up. I'm like, all right.
Yeah, I think a lot of the moments are simultaneously like I watch it and I go, that was really campy.
Yeah.
But then in the back of my mind I go, I still liked it.
Yeah,
I still really liked it.
And then I am definitely probably more of like have more of a campy personality than you two.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
But there were moments
Virgin.
in the PS4 game, the only point that I cried in was the only point that I cried in was when Aunt May died. That got me cry. But in this game, like I kind of started tearing up when like Uncle Aaron came back. I was like, that's not true actually. When the whole thing with Doc Ock and Peter, that
Was
made me
a great moment when
it shows up in the
when they
museum.
show up in the museum. That caught me so off guard, and I was like, yeah, quality.
Yeah.
And the little audio cue that there was,
So good.
whew, quality.
And in the PS4 game, that made me cry a lot too. But in this game, when like Uncle Aaron came back, like that really got me. Like that kind of moment where Finn sacrifices herself, that also got me. There's like
I cried
there's a bunch. But like I said, like the biggest moment for me was when he said like I'm Spider-Man, and that meant a lot to me, and it really like solidified like how much I care for Miles as a character, and like I really appreciate what they did with him, and I really appreciated the game.
And I mean that really is kind of his emotional character arc in this game, as ham-fisted and as cheesy as it is. It's that he doesn't feel like he can live up to the expectations, right? And he feels like he is the other Spider-Man. So when that's it. I also really like that moment, despite it being so campy. But yeah, I definitely when he's crawling up to the thing and he's gonna absorb all the energy, I knew at that moment, seeing Finn like looking back and looking forward, the camera stayed on her for just long enough that I was like, oh, she's dead.
Yeah.
She's gonna sacrifice herself here. And so it was then that I started kind of tearing up. And yeah, it just was like, for how little time we had with these characters and for how much more I think they could have done with them, it was very effective. Just from like a purely cinematic and gameplay standpoint, that ending was very emotional and very effective. But yeah, I had two more things that I wanted to note. One was I can't remember one, but two was
well, two has become one.
So yeah, number two is Spider-Man co-op. Come on,
We talked about that.
Come on, yeah, we've all talked about it. It's just is like you cannot
right there.
You cannot end on a shot of Miles and Peter both swinging together and not possibly think about, hey, what if we let two people play this at once? It just would be so amazing. And I think that this is what I was going to mention actually for the first one is that Miles I have personally, I don't think I have the same emotional connection to Spider-Man. I mean, no one does that Aiden has, right? But I think that I loved Spider-Verse so much, and it's my favorite Spider-Man movie of all time now. And I've watched that movie so many goddamn times that it may have uprooted the amount of times that I've watched like the original Sam Raimi, probably Spider-Man 3, honestly, because I watched that the most as a kid. I fucking love that movie. I fucking love that movie as a kid. But anyways, I just I almost feel like at this point I have just as much, if not more, and I did just play Miles Morales today, more connection to Miles than Peter. I just love his character so much, and I think that the way that he was done in Spider-Verse was amazing, and that was an amazing movie, and the way he was done here is amazing and fantastic, and so I really want to see more Miles Morales content. And in that vein, I think a great move for Insomniac next would be to give us Spider-Man, Miles and Peter into the Spider-Verse, right? Yeah. Give us. I think I was telling Aiden about this. I think it's remarkably hard to do co-op campaign in a lot of settings. Yeah. There's games that have tried it, like Army of Two. I don't know if you know that. It's a great gimmick and a great idea that it's like it's a game where the mechanics are built off of.
Is it that one
you
about
play
the prison break?
I don't.
There was a
oh
game
yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
There is a game like that I heard was also that was really good. But yeah, I think it is hard to do when the focus of the game isn't purely co-op. Right. So I was telling Aiden, I think that like a good move would be to have just a separate co-op campaign as well, right? Have it almost as side content, right? Because I can imagine playing a Spider-Man game where you have another spider dude who's just a bot, right? They're just a bot that plays with you and they're good AI, whatever, they help you. But then you say, hey Truman, I'm on this mission. You want to hop on and come play other Spider-Man with me? That would be fantastic. And I think another really good possibility for that is if you had some motherfucking Spider-Verse so you could play as a bunch of different Spider-Man. And I think that there's just like, whether you do it as literally just like literally just you tab into multiplayer mode and you just have some side content that you do, or if you straight up you build the whole game with the possibility of playing with multiple people. I think that as long as you still give us a great story that doesn't shift too much focus onto an alternate gameplay element, because obviously you still want the number one thing to be you feel like Spider-Man, right? You don't want it to feel like, oh, I'm Spider-Man and I have to do this with a buddy, right? Yeah. But I just think that there's so much potential there, and I think they should absolutely give that a shot.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we've gone too long already, so we got to stop it.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Good job.
Bye, Aiden.
Good game.
Yep.
Bye. I love you.
I love you, Aiden. Oh. Okay. He doesn't love me that much. Okay, bye.
Yes.
Good talk.
Bye. Yes. Go play Spider-Man Miles Morales. It's a good game. 8 out of 10.
8 out of 10 is fair. Okay, 8 out of 10.